So I wanted to talk today a bit about when we mess up, when we do something wrong and we get that horrible dread feeling of shame and guilt. And we beat ourselves up and it's something we can't stop thinking about. And we hate ourselves and we think over and over again about what we did and what we should have done differently. Now, sometimes that thing that we messed up is something quite small. Sometimes it's quite big. And I'm not here to discuss whether it's important or not, but to help you manage those feelings afterwards. It feels awful. And part of the reason why it feels so awful is because you care so deeply. It doesn't sit well with you, whatever it is that you did, if you were unreliable, whatever happened doesn't make you feel good. And that says a lot about your character, okay? But let's be clear, this was a mistake, okay? It's not proof that you're a terrible person or unreliable or whatever else is going through your mind. It's a mistake that you made, okay? Now, it's classic ADHD. It could be, depending what's happened, but it could be around working memory issues, time blindness, too many things going on at once, the mental tabs that are open. So it makes sense that it's happened. Okay. Acknowledge the part that ADHD has to play in this. That doesn't mean you have to make excuses, but accept that ADHD probably is part of what's going on here, right? It is frustrating, but it's not a moral failing. Okay. Part of managing ADHD is about taking responsibility when things go wrong, but we mustn't beat ourselves up endlessly. Okay. You're feeling bad, your instinct is to make up for it in a big way. So let's just take a pause and ask what would actually help repair this situation rather than just easing your guilt. Okay, because we need to make this about what's happened rather than about you. Take that sort of external view. Write down or maybe speak to someone else, possibly some ideas that feel proportional and reasonable. Okay, probably to start with, you want to do a direct, sincere, but quite simple apology. I'm sorry I let you down. I'm sorry this happened. I know you were counting on me, and I feel bad for forgetting that or whatever's happened. You might want to do a small act of goodwill, take a bunch of flowers. If there's some way you can repair it in a small way without, 10 timesing the response to make you feel better about it. It doesn't need to be a desperate attempt to fix everything, but just a way to show that you care. The next thing to do is try to make a plan to prevent it happening in the future. Now, that can be easier said than done. Sometimes it's that you forgot something that you would normally put a reminder in your phone for, and just for whatever reason this time you forgot. Have a think about what's happened. Have a think if it's something that does keep happening. So it might be something that there's a recurring theme here, so I need to do this differently. But what's important here is that we find something that works for you, okay? Not that classic, put it in your diary, put it in your calendar, okay? There might be certain tips that you can find about, habit stacking or kind of visual cues, things like that, that will help. But try and think, what could I do differently here, okay? Another thing to think about is maybe being a bit more open with some people in your life about this being a struggle. Now, I know that can be difficult. Sometimes we don't want to look like we're making excuses, I think is often the issue. But actually, it doesn't need to be a big deal. It doesn't need to be, I've got ADHD, so I'm going to forget that. I'm going to need you to do that for me. It can just be, whether you want to say about ADHD or not, but just say, I'm sure I won't forget, but sometimes I do. Would you do me a favor and just send me a quick text the night before just to remind me? Like, it's okay to ask for help. Most people will be happy to do that. That way, you're not just repairing the moment. So we talked about, making reparations, trying to kind of make it better again, but you're also going to reduce the future stress for yourself and anyone else who might be relying on you. We need to reframe this taking responsibility versus self-punishment. Okay, you're allowed to take responsibility, you're allowed to own it without punishing yourself for days. It doesn't help anyone. If you are feeling bad and feeling guilty, it doesn't help the person that you let down. It doesn't help yourself. it doesn't help what you're trying to do instead, what that's taking you away from. So all of those feelings are building up in your brain. Your amygdala takes over, makes your executive functioning worse than the stuff that you're supposed to be doing that's not even related to what's gone wrong is going to go wrong as well because you're focusing all your time and energy and attention on that thing. All right. So you don't need to beat yourself up for days. And actually doing that is detrimental to everybody involved. Okay. So responsibility means making it right, sorry, in a way that's thoughtful and sustainable, but not overcompensating out of shame. Have a think whether you can let yourself do that. If you've got any questions for me on this, please leave them in the comments, and I will get back to you. I hope it was helpful.